Why your first $10,000 changes everything, even if you're not rich. It's 3:07 in the morning. You're not asleep. You're staring at the ceiling. And your brain has decided now is the perfect time to run worst-case scenarios like it's auditioning for a disaster movie. What if the car doesn't start tomorrow? What if your laptop finally gives up? What if your boss calls you in for a quick chat? What if something happens to your health, or your pet, or your rent goes up again? Nothing is actually happening, but your nervous system doesn't know that. If this feels familiar, you're not broken. You're not bad with money. You're experiencing what millions of people experience when they live without financial margin. Now here's the question most people never ask. What if there was a specific amount of money that dramatically reduced this kind of stress? Not by making you rich, but by changing how your brain reacts to uncertainty. Most people assume financial freedom starts at 6 figures. Some think it's $1 million. Others think it's once I make more money. But the first real turning point isn't glamorous. It's $10,000. Not invested, not spent, just sitting there. And once you understand why this number matters, the way you approach money changes forever. Life without a financial buffer. Before we talk about what $10,000 does for you, we need to talk about what life looks like without it. Because if you've never had savings, it's hard to explain how much mental energy money stress consumes. At the grocery store, you're not thinking about nutrition or preference. You're doing math. Name brand or generic. Is this on sale? Can I afford this in gas? When friends suggest dinner, your brain immediately scans your account balance instead of the menu. You come up with excuses. You delay plans. You quietly opt out. Every decision becomes a calculation. Every unexpected expense feels like a threat. This is what living paycheck to paycheck actually means. It's not just low income. It's zero margin for error. When there's no buffer, life feels fragile. One small mistake can knock everything over. And when you live like this long enough, your brain adapts. Not in a good way. You stop planning long term. You stop taking risks. You stop believing things can improve. You're playing defense every single day. Why $10,000 is a psychological breakpoint. Here's where things get interesting. The power of $10,000 has almost nothing to do with what you can buy. Most people who reach this milestone don't upgrade their lifestyle. They don't start shopping differently. They don't suddenly feel rich. The real change happens internally. Your relationship with risk changes. When you have no savings, every decision feels dangerous. Changing jobs feels terrifying. Asking for a raise feels risky. Learning a new skill feels irresponsible. Because one wrong move could push you into chaos. But when you have $10,000 sitting quietly in the background, the emotional weight of decisions shifts. You're still careful, but you're not trapped. You can think beyond Friday's paycheck. That's the difference. What happens in your brain when you feel financially safe? This isn't just emotional. It's biological. Chronic financial stress keeps your body flooded with cortisol, the stress hormone. High cortisol affects sleep, focus, memory, and decision-making. It keeps you reactive instead of strategic. When people build a meaningful emergency fund, studies show measurable drops in stress levels. Not because problems disappear, but because problems stop feeling catastrophic. Think about a check engine light. Without savings, it triggers panic. You immediately calculate credit cards, borrowing, and worst-case outcomes. With savings, it's annoying, not terrifying. That shift from panic to inconvenience changes everything. You sleep better. You're more patient. You make fewer impulsive decisions. Money stops hijacking your nervous system. The emergency fund paradox. Here's something most people misunderstand. The value of an emergency fund doesn't come from using it. It comes from knowing it exists. Most people who build up $10,000 don't blow it on emergencies. They rarely touch it at all. Instead, it creates space. Space to think. Space to plan. Space to invest in themselves. Ironically, once people have savings, they often experience fewer emergencies because they're no longer forced into bad decisions. Confidence is a financial asset. There's a confidence shift that's hard to quantify, but impossible to miss. When you're broke, desperation leaks into everything. You accept bad job offers. You tolerate poor treatment. You settle for deals you know aren't great. When you have money in the bank, you walk differently. You negotiate more calmly. You say no more often. You don't cling to situations that aren't working. This confidence compounds. Better choices lead to better outcomes, which leads to more confidence. Why saving is an identity, not a math problem. Here's the truth most personal finance advice misses. Saving money isn't about spreadsheets. It's about identity. People fail at saving not because they're lazy or bad with money, but because they treat saving like a temporary punishment. They go extreme. They burn out. They quit. People who reach $10,000 don't think, I'm sacrificing. They think, this is who I am now. I'm someone who keeps money. Once that identity forms, everything changes. You notice waste automatically. You question purchases instinctively. You think in months and years instead of days. And after the first $1,000, the hardest one, momentum kicks in. Saving stops feeling heroic and starts feeling normal. Why $10,000 covers most real-life problems. There's also a practical reason this number matters. Most financial disasters cost less than $10,000. Car repairs, usually under $3,000. Medical bills, often manageable. Moving costs, covered. Temporary job loss, survivable. This means that once you reach this milestone, you're insulated from the most common setbacks that keep people stuck. You're not invincible, but you're resilient. And resilience is the foundation of financial progress. How $10,000 changes how you see money. Before savings, money feels like something that disappears. It comes in, it goes out. End of story. After savings, money becomes a tool, a buffer, a lever, an option creator. This is when people start thinking about investing, not because they're experts, but because their brain finally has room to care. Scarcity kills curiosity. Security restores it. Why the saver is ahead of the high earner. Here's a counterintuitive truth. Someone with $10,000 saved is often better positioned than someone earning twice as much with nothing saved. Income doesn't build wealth. Behavior does. You've seen it before. High earners who are always stressed, always broke, always one setback away from crisis. Meanwhile, disciplined savers quietly move forward. Saving teaches patience. It teaches restraint. It teaches delayed gratification. Those skills matter more than salary. What $10,000 actually unlocks? With a financial buffer, opportunities appear. A course that boosts your income suddenly feels possible. A career pivot feels less dangerous. A relocation becomes an option instead of fantasy. You're not reckless. You're strategic. Options change behavior. Behavior changes outcomes. Better sleep, better relationships, better life. Financial stress ruins sleep. It strains relationships. It shortens tempers. When that stress lifts, even partially, life improves in subtle but powerful ways. You're more present. You're less reactive. You're easier to be around. Money doesn't buy happiness, but stability removes misery. Starting small is the point. If $10,000 feels impossible right now, that's normal. The mistake is thinking you need to save it fast. You don't. You need to save it consistently. $25, $50, $100. Consistency builds identity. Identity builds momentum. Most people underestimate how much flexibility they actually have, not because they're careless, but because no one ever taught them to look. The real transformation. The biggest change isn't the money. It's who you become while saving it. You become calmer, more deliberate, more confident. And once you've saved $10,000, something clicks. If you did this once, you can do it again. That belief is priceless. Final thought. $10,000 won't make you rich. It won't solve every problem, but it will change how you experience life. It turns panic into inconvenience, desperation into patience, reaction into strategy. If you're starting from zero, don't focus on the number. Focus on becoming the kind of person who saves. Because once that identity locks in, the rest becomes inevitable.